Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed guests. On behalf of the India International Center, I extend a warm welcome to each one of you to this important discussion on India's digital public infrastructure initiative. Today, we embark on a journey to explore the transformational power of technology and its impact on public services, governance, and the lives of the billion people. The Digital Public Infrastructure Initiative is a groundbreaking effort that promises to redefine the way India interacts with its citizens, businesses, and the world. To begin the program, I would like to invite Sri Shamsaran, President and Life Trustee, India International Center, for his welcome remarks.
Good evening, everyone, and very warm welcome to all of you to India International Center. Some days ago, Professor Sood was with me at an interaction that we had in the Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay complex, where we were talking about India's great achievements in the digital economy field and the promise that it holds for the future. And this was just a few days after the very successful G20 summit, in which one of the very important initiatives which India took and with which Professor Sood, as Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, was very closely associated, is this India's Digital Public Infrastructure Initiative. If I'm not mistaken, India is now the registry for, or is creating the registry for this initiative. So this has become a very important contribution, I would say, from India in terms of a global public good, as we say, and also something which is really a kind of demonstration of how leapfrogging in technology really can make India, in a sense, bypass some of the stages of development. And I think we have had such developments in the past. The mobile phone, for example, was a very good example, where landline nobody even talks about today. We literally leapfrog that particular stage of development. And I think what we have in this initiative is that promise of another leapfrogging, with the difference that perhaps the impact will be far more pervasive than perhaps what we have seen before. So this is an initiative of great promise, and I thought it would be very worthwhile for us to have Professor Sood come to us and just give us a sense of how this initiative has developed and what the potential for the future is. And I'm very happy and very grateful to Professor Sood for having accepted our invitation to come and make a presentation this evening. And I'm also extremely happy that we have two very, very distinguished discussants. We have Mr. Rajesh Gopinathan, who used to be the CEO of TCS, one of the most successful IT companies of India with international reputation. And although he has just left TCS, but we were able to catch him because of that, perhaps, to come and talk to us. So welcome, Mr. Gopinathan, and thank you for again accepting our invitation. And a very good friend of mine, Ambuj Sagar, whom I have known for several years, again one of the most distinguished scientists our country has worked with me in the past on some important initiatives. We were doing the clean cooking. What is it called? Clean. Biomass cook stove. So we were looking at whether we could really develop a clean, cooking stove, and he was very helpful in that. We were also working on the National Solar Mission, again something on which Ambuj contributed a great deal. So I'm very happy that we have been able to drag him away for this evening to also give us a sense of, from his perspective, how can we take this technology forward? So without any further ado, may I invite Professor Sood to make his presentation. Thank you.
Shyam Saranji, ladies and gentlemen, it's absolutely a, can I keep audience not in the dark? That's fine, because then I can connect with you. So it's absolutely a privilege for me to be here this evening to talk to you on something which we all feel, experience and use in our daily life. And first a disclaimer, I am no expert on this, but the fact that we have been living with DPI for quite a while, when Shyam Saranji asked me to talk to a very learned audience, I agreed, because I thought it will also give me an opportunity to catch up on what is happening in recent weeks and recent months, and really how do we calibrate ourselves as we go along in this direction. So this talk will take you through some achievements, what India has done, what the global leadership it has taken, and with what are the challenges we still face to really make headway into this. So with this, so let me give you the agenda for this evening. I assume I have about 35 minutes, but feel free if you think I am being very opaque, you can stop me. Being a professor, I don't mind getting stopped and quizzed. You can do that. So the agenda for the, of course, for this evening I have written, but the general agenda is how do we build a nation with DPI. And this evening, I'll look at a platform for innovation, what it is, what makes for a strong DPI, what is the India stack which we talk of, what are the achievements, features, what is a digital public good which we also hear all the time, what is the difference between DPI and DPG, what are the layers of innovation in this, what impact it has had on economy in various sectors. I'll take very few examples because this is a field where you can really talk for few hours and you will still have more to say. And India's DPI leadership and global cooperation. And what I have not written, if 2-3 slides on the challenges which we need to overcome in coming months and years. So let me start from the very basic, that digital public infrastructure is a set of digital building blocks that create a digital network that can enable a country to safely and effectively deliver economic opportunities and social services to its population. So in a way, you can just take it as a highway. It's a digital highway instead of the hardware highway, which creates a network of many highways, making it easy for the transport of goods and services. So it's a digital backbone to ensure that we have the service delivery at scale and in a transparent manner and in a way that everyone can participate in a democratic manner and a dignified manner. Now, this you will see is really a platform for innovation. Over the years, so many innovations have come out because of this initiative. And this has also helped India to advance on its sustainable development goals. You all know there are 17 SDGs with many sub-classification, and it has really touched almost all the SDGs and make the impact. I'll give you some examples. In nutshell, it has increased efficiency in public sector. It has brought transparency, And it has unlocked innovation in the private sector and opened new markets. So you will immediately see as we go along, this is a wonderful platform where the infrastructure is created by government, and the players who are using it to take to the public, to the society, are the private players, and they compete amongst each other in a very open manner and give you the services. So it is not that everything is run by government and everything is PLI and so many based. There is no such thing. And that's the success story here, where we bring public-private partnership as a success story. And this is what you will see. So in the last few years, there have been various studies. And in the study by Gate Foundation, they have concluded that DPIs can accelerate economic growth by almost 20 to 30% in the country. This is the data analyzed based on India. So before we go further, let's look at it. What makes for a strong DPI? There are many factors, like 5 in the Pentagon. First is the accessibility. It should be having an inclusive design. It should be user-friendly interfaces. It should have localization, means it should be specific because we have so many languages, so many regions, so many cultures. It should be catering to all the regions. So the localization is important, keeping the diversity of India in mind. It should be interoperability. It should have standard protocols, application programming interfaces, and data exchange. They should be all interoperable. Security, which is a key feature, and you know the cyber security threats are every day happening. Almost 70 lakhs attacks are there in India by latest count, and it is a huge threat. So it should be secure, encryption, authentication, regular audits, and compliance. Other one will be scalability. It should have an elastic infrastructure. It should not be very rigid. Depending on the demand and depending on what you want to get, it should be able to shrink, it should be able to expand, and various instruments will not be of the same size. Please keep in mind. Aadhaar might be of some size, DigiLock might have another size. So whatever you look in DPI, it should have an infrastructure which is elastic, it should have a cloud-based solution, and importantly, reliability. It should have redundancy, disaster recovery, and service level agreements. So this is what you will need for a strong DPI in any country: interoperability, open and inclusive system for the country. Now, in context of India, which is what I'll be focusing today, there are 3 layers in our foundational system. One is the identity layer. What it is, as the name suggests, giving every resident a unique ID and enabling them to prove I am who I claim to be. Non-trivial. This is what is the starting point. Second, the payments layer. This means you must allow anyone to pay anyone else. I can pay to you, you can pay to anyone else, not only to bank, but anything, anyone, any operator. Interoperable, fast and cheap, and not just smartphones. Please remember, smartphone-based system will not work in India to the last mile. We have to make sure our solutions are not only based on smartphones, but even to the lesser technologies. And data layer, that means data empowerment to enable secure sharing of data. Now on the right hand side, I have written in each layer examples of that. In identity layer, you will immediately identify Aadhaar, KYC, GSTN. I'll just say that more clearly, maybe in this slide. So here, this is a bit busy slide. Apologies for if you have too much of thing in the evening to read. But I will just remind you, Aadhaar started only in 2009. And this is a 12-digit unique identification number that is linked to a biometric, demographic, and optional contact details. eKYC, electronic authentication of a customer's identity, started in 2013. eSign, service enabling Aadhaar holders to digitally and remotely sign documents, 2016. 2017, we had very powerful GSTN, a unique 15-digit assigned to business and individuals who are registered under the GST regime. It is used to track and manage the tax liabilities and compliance of registered taxpayers. And the last one, a few years back, Uddam, a registration system for MSMEs in India. In other layer, payment layer, which is very, very important, and that's how it is touching everyone in their daily lives, is the Aadhaar-enabled payment system, 2010, Aadhaar Payment Bridge, 2011. Here I have written which agency is looking at it. UPI, Unified Payment Interface, is an instant real-time payment system in 2016. And the last one, Bharat Bill Payment System, which is an integrated bill payment providing a centralized platform for the payment of telephone bills, utility bills, and so on in 2016. Another one layer is the data layer, which is the DigiLocker. I'm sure many of you would have used it. It is the digitalization service that provides an account in cloud to every Aadhaar holder to access authentic documents, and account aggregator. Again, very, very important. Enable consented access and sharing any personal digital financial information in a secure manner. So that is 2021 by Reserve Bank of India. So this is another term we all come across. So I thought I'll put it up front so that you know the difference between the two. So digital public goods are the open source software or protocols that form the underlying technical modular components of a DPI. So what does it mean? It means that all the, I showed you all the services, they have a digital public good or an infrastructure behind it. So if you look at Aadhaar, Aadhaar is based on MOSIP. This is the GDP, global GPD, public good. This is anchored at International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore, developed by them. ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce, is based on Beacon, based out of Bangalore, the firm. And CoWIN, which touched our lives during the COVID time, is based on digital infrastructure for verifiable open credentialing anchored by eGov. So that is what I thought you should keep in mind on all this public, digital public goods. You can build many, many more services which will be either in one of the three layers or outside, which I'll show you later. So this is India stack at a glimpse, which I just mentioned in three layers. So what I'll do now for next few minutes, I'll go over each layer, take one or two examples from each layer, and tell you what progress we have made in the last few years. And the famous one is Aadhaar. This is the first DPI, was introduced in 2009, which enabled citizens to have a biometrically secure digital national ID. I don't think anyone in this room will be without Aadhaar. Look at the numbers. It is mind-boggling, actually. You just see first the Aadhaar generation trend. Now, in Aadhaar generation trend, you look at the cumulative values, which is given by this yellow one. If you look at that, we have, by September 2023, last month, we have 1.37 billion enrollments of Aadhaar. They are recorded. 1.37 billion. Please keep these numbers. I think, I hope we see the enormity of this. And about 100 billion official Aadhaar authentications are taken place. So if you look at every month, how monthly values, how we have gone, number of Aadhars, it started in 2020 data in this graph with 3 million going on. Now it is almost coming to saturation because almost everyone has a Aadhaar card. And authentication trends you see is now 100 billion authentication as of September 2023. So much is in demand because all these services will link to Aadhaar is becoming so very easy because this very one single DPI, namely Aadhaar. Aadhaar based know your customer eKYC numbers every day. These numbers, I just giving these numbers because sometimes we tend to do a very colloquial way of saying it is doing good and all. It's not doing good, it is doing great. I want you to see these numbers with that. Actually, I am awed when I looked at this number more closely in the last 2 days when I was preparing this talk. It's really awesome. On 16th October, if you look at the last data, you look at the 12 million KYC were done on 16th October. Just see how many are happening every second. Divide that please by date and you will be astonished that you almost have 13 million eKYC transaction on a single day. So these two examples which I took from the identity layer, digital public identities, they facilitate innovative and convenient public and private services, addressing inclusion and accessibility barriers while enhancing transparency and accountability through real-time data. Now I'll come to Goods and Service Tax Network, GSTN. It leverages DPI technology to record detailed invoice data, fostering transparency and incentivizing business to collaborate with suppliers. Again, some statistics will be helpful, even though it's late evening. I am sure we can still absorb some numbers. GST revenue in September 2023, 1 month I am talking, is 1.62 million crores. 162,712 crores. I don't know how many zeros it will have. Please put the zeros. This is what is in September 2023. So the yellow graphs is for last year and GST collection in this year, which is what I have given up to September, is you can see it is better than the last year. Last year was 147,686 crores and this year in September we have 162,712. Again a very substantial change. Let's come to UPI. So now I am going to the second layer where payments are involved. Payments, if you look at, again, I just want to give you the trend. Starting from April 16, if you look at this graph, which is the value, this value you have to read on this graph. Okay, it is a bit challenging, but I'll give you the numbers. In June 2023, we had 9.34 billion transactions. 9.34 billion. And the value was 14.75 lakh crore rupees. Please absorb these numbers. In September this year, in August, sorry, we have 15.8 lakh crore transactions and the amount is almost 10.6 billion rupees. This is what you look at the year-to-year growth. It is 61% and transaction amount, the growth rate is 47%. I don't think we have seen such numbers in the last many years on any of this. The beauty is that this is the beauty of this whole DPI. It is agnostic to the vendor. So the government made the public infrastructure and now it invited all the private players to come and play on a level playing field. So you don't have to be tied to Paytm, you don't have to be tied to PhonePe, you don't have to be tied to Amazon Pay. Imagine, Amazon Pay is a $1 billion industry. On that, what is competing is Rupee, PhonePe. Much smaller company, but they are giving them run for the money because they are doing even better. So the reason I am saying this is again a very beautiful marriage of public-private partnership which has made a success story here. And we are not favoring any private player in particular. All are welcome. If you have the technology, if you have the resilience, please come and play. And this is what has given rise to these phenomenal numbers which I was talking in this slide. So this example is just to tell that what is the scale. Now, how Indian economy, UPI of course is making a big difference, but at the same time, it is also getting accepted. 10 countries have accepted the UPI payment base. You must be hearing very recently when our Honorable Prime Minister was visiting Egypt recently and earlier they made an announcement. 30 more have expressed interest in adoption. And this has really taken off, especially after G20 success. So this is something, and now you have many more things coming up. E-Rupee started in August 21. This is a prepaid, person-specific, purpose-specific e-voucher based on QR code or SMS that does not require a bank account even. That's where the technology is going. You can have these vouchers. Then another one is the open network for digital commerce. Another one started. And now you will see so many startups are coming as we speak. The recent ones you must have come across, Zerodha and Grow for insurance coverage process and stock services. So this is something, how things are catching up, how one success story is kindling the other one is seen here. So digital service platforms, they have enabled domestic production of electronic goods by one report, which I have given a reference here. It increased from 317,331 crore few years back to now it is almost doubled in 3 years, 21-22, with a compound growth rate of 15%. So it's not only in one thing, many sectors are really getting influenced. This is another one which I told you, account aggregator in my second stack. And this is the India's DPI for financial data sharing, which is what we call account aggregator, empowers users with their own data. So how does it work? First, it needs a consent from you and me to share the data. This is what account aggregator does. Then it requests data through open APIs through all these institutions, financial institutions. And once it is done that, then it will go to financial information users. It could be your credit card, it could be your insurance, it could be personal finance management, wealth management, robo-advisor, and all that with your consent, most important. If you don't have that, account aggregator cannot do a thing. So this is a beautiful, again a DPI which has enabled 1.1 billion accounts, 1.1 billion accounts to share banking, securities, insurance, and pension data. Another, in the second layer, I put the in the third layer, DigiLocker in the data. So in DigiLocker, again, what do you have? You have citizens. You put your, you have an account with DigiLocker. You can get documents issued digitally from the issuers. And then the request comes, which you can enable, and they will directly access your document with your consent, DigiLocker. Again, a large number. How much is the data here? Please look at. Right now, as we speak, early part of 2023, we have 205 million users. And issued documents is mind-boggling. 3.27 billion documents have been issued in 2023, till recently. Again, a huge success story on a very, very large scale. So let me, when did we start? Sorry, I have, right? Yeah. Oh, when you say few minutes to a professor, you know what it means. I hope you know it. Okay, but yeah. So impact of DPIs in different sector. I'll just give you some examples, and I'm sure in the discussion with the two very eminent and much more knowledgeable than me, they will elaborate on that. So impact of DPI in financial inclusion is phenomenal. In just over a decade since launching its digital identity system, the number of adults with bank account has more than doubled, reaching now an impressive 78%. And who are the most beneficiary? The women. The women account holder ownership has increased from 26% to 78%. Phenomenal growth, this was the neglected partners. Now women have accounts as much as men have, and this is something, again, an equalizer in a very, very important way. And this is again an important study, and I am quoting Nandan Nilekani. He says UPI is seeing huge adoption because it's safe and convenient. And in this data, what is plotted is the GDP per capita in USD, and on the y-axis we are plotting adults with an account. How much percentage have accounts, adult people have accounts. Look at y-axis, and they are correlated. So if more people in the country have account, GDP is correlated. This is the data from all over the world. But you see what India did. That's the true meaning of leapfrogging. If you didn't know an example, this is the example. In 2008, we were here. Can you see this dot? Our GDP is so low, even now. GDP has not changed. In 2017, we have come to 80%. So this red graph has defied all common sense. So what has been able to do with this UPI, that even with the modest GDP, we have now almost 80% people having account. And this is what making people think, what is the way to understand this phenomena? So the conventional wisdom has failed here. What we need to do now, we have to increase our GDP per capita. There is no excuse. The fact that we have crossed this jump, it does not mean our GDP should not grow. GDP has to grow. And this is where I'm just telling you, it's a leapfrogging, game changer, disruptive innovation. All these things are really exemplified by this graph. So few examples of in the finance sector, direct benefit transfer, DBT, which is a game changer. So what do? You have UID amount, then government releases funds against unique identification number at this point. Then it goes to National Payment Corporation of India, NPCI. And the second thing, and after that, funds are credited in beneficiary accounts. And then you have beneficiary withdrawing from multiple sources. Again, very simple, clear and transparent system. DBT. Oh, I know you will confuse with your agency. It's not biotechnology. Sorry, because this biologists think DBT only means Department of Biotechnology. So suddenly I saw you and I thought it is not, it is actual DBT. Real DBT. Okay, sorry. So in this, public financial management services has become a robust, integrated with over 600 banks for account. 600 banks for account verification and with NPCI for Aadhaar-linked account validation. So you have two possibilities now. And this is what this diagram is showing, again pictorially, how this goes to a PFMS portal. It can connect to a bank, it can connect to NPCI, and then the beneficiary bank. All these things are done seamlessly in this PFMS. And this is what is called the Trinity, JAM. Jandhan, Aadhaar, Mobile. Three form a Trinity. And this Trinity has allowed all this. We have now Jandhan, you know what is Jandhan is, when every household will have a bank account started by our Honorable Prime Minister. 487 million Jandhan accounts now, and 1.98 or 2 trillion deposits are there as of today, till last month. We have 138 crore Aadhaar, as I told you, and now look at the mobile reach. This is what Shyam Saranji was saying. How it is disruptive. How we don't go for landline and stand in the queue for 5 years, which is what I did when I wanted the... You won't believe, landline was such a possessed thing. Even when they were doing matchmaking, they will also say, the boy also has a telephone. And that, all that got vanished. All that got vanished. Now we have 1.2 billion phones, users. So this Trinity, the JAM Trinity, Jandhan, Aadhaar, Mobile, is what has reshaped the way citizen can access government services. So this is the whole success story of accessing the government services. Again, it helps to give the numbers, because the numbers speak for themselves. I don't have to speak. Year-wise fund transaction in rupees in crores, look at 22-23, it 716,396 crores, 7.16 million crores done, and this 23 data is still growing. Look at the year-wise DBT beneficiaries. Now there are two beneficiaries written, don't go over the detail. One is called beneficiary in cash, where you transfer cash. Other is you transfer some in kind, because government also does that. And if you look at that, 81.2 crore beneficiaries as we speak till September. And in kind and in cash is about 49 crores. Very, very large number of beneficiaries getting directly reached. And this is what we saw in COVID-19. COVID-19, India's direct benefit transfer mechanism was effectively reaching out to 87% of underprivileged households. 87. Highlighting India's ability to deliver essential service through digital means. I'll just take 2 or 3 other sectors. I will not take all, because again, a lot of you are from education sector. We have Vice Chancellor of JNU. We have many distinguished people from academics here. So I thought you will see DPI approach is also utilized in education to improve capacity and outcome. One example, only one I'll give you, is Diksha. It is managed by NCRT under Ministry of Education, and as of this month, October 23, it has facilitated 60 billion learning minutes. Please convert. It amounts to, I did this calculation before I came, 117,733, which means 11 lakh days it has learning minutes already on it. It has enrollment, again mind-boggling, 16 crores. Course and usage, 13,000 crores are there on Diksha. Course completions, how many people have done, and application availability is almost 100%. One sector which has really taken on following DPI approach is education. Another sector, again concerns all of us in our daily life, is health. Look at again the number. This is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, PMJ. This is the largest health insurance assurance in the world, which aims at providing a health cover of rupees 5 lakhs per family per year for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization to over 12 crore poor and vulnerable families. And beneficiaries are almost 55 crores that form the bottom 40% of Indian population. Again, look at the number. Hospital admissions as of 18th October 2023. And I'll thank the warriors who made these slides in the last one, because you can immediately see that we have some very, very good warriors in our office who can tell you what happened yesterday. And as of 18th October, if I have to convert right, you can convert evening, you can't convert right in public domain. But so many progress since launch. Progress in last 24 hours is 27,000. So many hospital admissions have come through this portal, PMJ. Ayushman card issues is 4,73,701 in last 24 hours from now. Imagine the reach it has happened. Transport sector again touches all of us when we go on the highway. Fast tag statistics, again very impressive. If you look at transaction volume, which is in orange, it is 5,000, which is on the left side, in million, 5,000 million. And FASTag issue, how much has been issued in million is the green one, which is almost 24 million. Again, a very large number on any scale. I think I'll start closing this talk to just tell you that DPI facilitate innovative and convenient public-private services, addressing inclusion and accessibility barriers while enhancing transparency and accountability through real-time data. And this is what India Stack has enabled, an emergence of successful private businesses leveraging the identity and payment layers of the media. This is the key takeaway. This is a beautiful marriage of public-private partnership, integration of all this which I told you in 3 layers. It allows insurance companies to operate entirely digitally from account setup to policy insurance. And this is what has promoted innovation in our system. Technology is at the forefront. Innovations have come because DPI enables you to see the fruits of your innovation on a very short time. Experimentation, collaboration, and launching new apps very, very quickly. Now, what do we need for this? This will not happen of its own. So we need digital India skill. We need to skill people. And we need to have employment interface in India, which is a must for DPI. Already things are happening from the government side. Digital India program started in 2015. We have now 5,20,000 what they call common service centers, where people can go and access these services, they can use that. Look at the numbers. 17,000 primary agriculture credit societies on board, 6,000 PSCs shall provide services on this. And what has happened? It has enabled the entrepreneurs. 55,000 women entrepreneurs became village level entrepreneurs. So they provide this service which government has given and charge a very nominal amount because they can help the other co-villagers. And this is a number which is growing. So this has empowered women to be entrepreneur sitting at home, making a small shop outside, put the digital system and make it accessible to others by helping how to do it. And this is the Flexit. This is an opportunities to the female workforce who stays unemployed due to family obligations. So you can apply on this and you can see how you can connect with this digital skill initiative. Again, what India has done. India has generated $227 billion revenue last year, last to last year, 21-22, 55.3 million full-time employment in the ICT sector in 2020, 60 to 65 million digitally enabled jobs expected in 25-26. It should be, sorry for my this thing, it should be human resource, not manpower. Whether it is manpower, women power is same. You can see that I couldn't change it. Why? Because this is the image, I couldn't modify. So this is image from a site which I have given the oh, it's not here. And I couldn't change to human resource required in IT industries, 95 lakhs you need. And training in AI, please take this word for this evening. AI is the new thing, which is what IT was in 1990. Now you have to be all AI savvy. This data manpower, it will be 55 lakhs. And already things are happening with NASSCOM and MITI. They have started a future skill program expected to train around 8.2 lakh candidates, and 1.36 lakh candidates have already completed. Very good sign. And again, India BPO promotion scheme in 2015 started, and Northeast BPO promotion scheme started. Direct employment to almost 52,000 persons in 246 BPOs in 27 states and UTs. Coming to the last point, DPI leadership and global cooperation. That's how our conversation started with Shyam Saranji few days back in India International. And this is truly, truly amazing acknowledgement of India's prowess in this field. So India under G20 presidency with UNDP has launched two valuable resources, the DPI SDG Compendium and DPI Playbook. And this is what is here. This is the one of them, a playbook, and the other one is the digital public infrastructure. You can get them. So India's leadership resonates globally, particularly in the context of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And India's DPI leadership and global cooperation, you have all seen in G20. Think 20 was very important, again, the engagement group. In its policy communique also suggests that G20 members should leverage public-private partnership models to strengthen joint and in-country initiative for building DPI ecosystems that are scalable, open access, and innovation friendly. This is again under the G20 framework. A G20 working group on DPI should be set up under the Sherpa. It is there in the communique you would have read, for members to jointly create and share models for sustainable, inclusive, agile, and responsible DPI. Please note the word responsible. Global scene, how do we stand? Now I have told you all these great things. Now you will see, if you look at this ranking, which is what I have given you the source, they have various metrics, parameters I will not go into. According to them, Denmark is the first one out of 63 countries. And India stands at 45. At 45. Is that correct? Yeah. And what you have to see, that we have a huge scope to improve. Huge, huge scope. Imagine where we will be when we really come to in the first 5. So UN Broadband Commission has adopted, which you must have read in the newspaper, 1 for 2. What does it mean? It means that you should be access, every citizen should have 1 GB of mobile broadband for 2% of GNI per capita. Depending on your monthly income, if you spend 2%, you should be able to get 1 GB data. And last month, they have made 1 for 5. No, sorry, 5 for 2. So now they are demanding that the public should have 5 GB of mobile broadband for 2% of the income. And this is what is the target we need to keep. So we need to have the gap areas to be addressed. Right now, that 42% rural households have internet access compared to 84% urban. So you have a big rural-urban divide. We need to bridge it. You have private sectors who only invest, I'm saying only, because if you look at the world figure, $10 billion per year in digital infrastructure. China invests about $200 billion. 41% Indian women use the internet compared to 61% of Indian men. Again, gender divide need to plug in. 4G connection speed is not very high. This varies on place to place. This is an average, 1 kilobyte per second compared to average of almost 10 kilobyte per second in the US. And total data capacity, which is what you really need when you want to store all data, India has a data capacity of 500 megawatt compared to 2000 megawatt in the US. So how do you address the challenges? You have to encourage public-private partnership, which can help to mobilize resources and expertise. We need to promote digital content in regional languages, very, very key. Through public-private partnership, increase the grassroots access and affordability of digital services, and establish public Wi-Fi hotspots in underserved areas. So again, I will not repeat these conclusions. I have said it as I went along. India's digital public infrastructure, what is our guiding principle? Foundational building blocks and ecosystem support, valuable lessons, interoperability, competition, and minimalistic design with strong private sector involvement. What is the second conclusion I came this evening? India prioritized information technology in shaping the identity layer as seen in Aadhaar's universal coverage. India stack emphasizes ecosystem support again through this competition-driven design. UPI bypassed existing bottlenecks. Whatever was existing, we leapfrogged, promoting competition and stakeholders engagement to ensure user-centric solutions and again, public-private partnership for the widespread deployment. So I will conclude this to say that India stands at the forefront of innovation, sculpting unique technology-led growth models that foster collaboration, ensure equity, and democratize opportunities at population scale. And these are the warriors I was referring, who have done a lot of homework to get me the data, get me all the actual numbers. Dr. Preeti Bansal, advisor in the office of PSA, Dr. Shagun Basha, Dr. Sneha Malhotra, somewhere in the audience, Rohan Barad, again I saw he is somewhere here, Dakshta Lingayat and Shubham Agrawal. So thank you once again for all of you for giving time in the evening, and I'm hoping we'll have a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sood, for taking us through the intricacies of the India's digital public infrastructure initiative. Truly, this initiative is revolutionizing the way we connect, communicate, and conduct business in the digital age. Well, I have to again request Professor Sood to come on the dais for the enlightening conversation that follows. And I welcome our other esteemed panel of speakers, Professor Ambuj Sagar and Sri Rajesh Gopinath. Each one of them brings a unique perspective to this transformative journey, and their insights will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of India's digital public infrastructure initiative. Well, I take this opportunity to briefly introduce our panelists. Professor Ambuj Sagar is the Deputy Director, Strategy and Planning, and the Vipula and Mahesh Chaturvedi Professor of Policy Studies at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Previously, he was the founding head of the School of Public Policy, and before joining IIT Delhi, He was a senior research associate at the Harvard Kennedy School and the assistant dean for strategic planning at the Harvard Paulson School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Recently, he was a lead author in WG3 of the IPCC's sixth assessment report and a member of the independent group of scientists appointed by the UN Secretary General to prepare the Global Sustainable Development Report 2023. Professor Sagar is currently a member of the Science and Security Board of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which is the group that sets the hands of the doomsday clock. Welcome, Professor Sagar. Shri Rajesh Gopinath served as CEO and Managing Director of the Tata Consultancy Services, the second largest technology services company in the world. He joined the Tata Group in 1996 and worked across multiple roles and markets. During his tenure, he drove growth and strategic transformation at the company by focusing on capability building in digital technologies, partnerships with key technology product vendors, and investing in innovation and IP creation at scale. A fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering, he has a BE in Electric and Electronics Engineering from the National Institute of Technology, Trichy. He completed his PGDM from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. In 1996, he was recognized with the Business Leader of the Year award by CNBC in 2020 and India's Best CEO by Business Today in 2021. Welcome, Shri Gopinath. Sir, floor is all yours now.
I don't know the format.
First of all, Professor Sood, I thought I knew a bit about DPI, but I was also massively, educated by your, very, very detailed presentation. In fact, walking up here, I was talking to Professor Sagar that there's very little left for us to further drill down compared to what the depths that you have taken. So, I think one of the most important areas that you spoke about was this whole area of Jandhan and the JAM Trinity, and how these three together have actually leapfrogged the whole positioning of India in the digital transformation journey. Maybe that's a good space for us to start, sure. Professor Sagar, and if you agree, maybe we can drill down into that a bit. And from a format perspective, also we would be maybe open it up for a bit of questions from the audience, and then we could share perspectives across the board. Okay.
Actually, maybe I'll just step back for a second before we get to the specifics. I come to this conversation from a perspective, again, actually a disclaimer like yours. This is not an area of my direct expertise, digital infrastructure, but in the area of public policy, the key question is how do you actually deliver goods and services to people to advance their well-being? And infrastructure, we know, historically has played a very important role, right? Road infrastructure, we're all familiar with that. Electricity infrastructure, it's transformed our lives. And most recently, and I think I want to kind of mention that example because I think it gives us a sense of what is to come as part of the next phase of the story that Professor Sood talked about. I think the last major digital infrastructure that we have seen globally is the internet, right? Really, again, the same model, a public investment in the infrastructure, and on top of that, all those applications that now we are very familiar with that have transformed our lives in the last 25 years, right? So I want to kind of just set that as context that for someone like me who doesn't study digital infrastructure, I think these kind of talks and frankly, these conversations and what's gone on in India in the last few years has helped me understand that if you're in the business of thinking about public policy, you cannot not think about digital public infrastructure. because it is going to be transforming the way public services are being given. And so now to come to what you were talking about, this trinity of JAM is a great example of three key issues in public policy: efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. You really want all three of those in order to get the social outcomes you want. You want to deliver services efficiently, minimum leakage, and with as little cost as possible. You want to do it effectively. You want to be able to achieve the outcome you want as targeted as possible. And you want to be able to reach everyone, right? And the examples, the data you showed and the examples that you gave very much illustrate that. You talked about direct benefits transfer, and the numbers there are mind-boggling, right? This is efficiently, effectively reaching the bottom of the pyramid, right? It really is, in many ways, the holy grail of public policy. And maybe I'll just make one more comment and then turn it back onto you. In the world of technology, a standard way to understand where one is in the story of the technology is to look at the growth of various dimensions of the technology over time, users, transactions, and all of that. And normally that growth curve takes the shape of an S, right? Empirically, we have seen that over and over and over again, right? If you looked at the data that Professor Sood put up, it shows we're very early in the S curve. Most of the graphs had a slow rise and then it started rising. If one thinks about, and the reality is all technology actually ends up following this S curve, it means we are still very early in this story. It means we are growing, but we are far from saturation. It means there's a lot of future opportunities possible. The financial inclusion, using this JAM Trinity is one example. I'll maybe come back to others in a second, but I want to turn it back over to you, Rajesh, if you want to kind of make some comments further.
Thank you, Professor Sagar. Professor Sood, when you started your presentation, I think the most important thing that you put, probably you must have put a lot of thought into that line itself, saying that this is a platform for innovation. And that's to me, that's the key. Because if you think about it from a functionality perspective or from a technology perspective, this is not unique. It's not that common identity systems have not existed. The SSN system has existed in US for many years, and social security net systems. Payment systems have existed for many years. But what has happened in our country is that by the government investing in a system that was architected for open access, secure, all-pervasive, but open access, the government has actually trusted the private sector ecosystem to take this data and to provide services. Similarly, on the payment systems, by creating the NPCI and architecting a system that was built with APIs at its core, we actually trusted the private sector to actually then step in and to provide the services. And what we saw, and in that example that you put, whether it is a Google Pay, whether it is an Amazon Pay, whether it is Paytm, everybody is running off the same architecture. And something like what Paytm did, which was a proprietary architecture, got replaced. And today Paytm uses pretty much 95% of Paytm's transactions underneath is now running on the UPI architecture, though it originally started as a proprietary single wallet architecture. So this aspect of it, that it was designed to be an open system, to be consumed by a private sector on top, and to drive innovation, and to make it available at a price point which would catalyze that innovation, I think was the most far-reaching call that was taken. And I'll just conclude with one more point on the JAM one. Aadhaar existed. But the forward-looking call to actually open those JAM accounts, the Jandhan accounts, is what actually took it to the bottom of the pyramid. And when it went to the bottom of the pyramid, it unlocked the volume that was required for the kind of catalytic effects that got created. So it's also a combination of technology and policy working together, because the opening of the Jandhan accounts was practically a policy decision rather than a technology decision. So the combination of technology and policy coming together. And then finally, like all things, I think the pandemic had a very positive effect in the catalyzing this whole thing. So while it was in many ways one of the worst things that could have happened, but like we say, in every cloud has a silver lining, the actual takeoff of digital payments was in many forms actually catalyzed by the pandemic, and there is one positive at least outcome of what happened in those days. So
completely so beautifully put by both of you. So COVID or COVID, if we call it, was really a turning point when people came to know the power of digital infrastructure, because it was question of life and death. Because if you had to book a bed, you had to go through your credentials. Another thing which again we touched, and I want to re-emphasize so that it does not get lost, we also have seen the democratization of innovation by this. We have seen that innovations are not only coming from tier 1 cities. Innovations are coming from every point in our ecosystem, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 2, tier 3 is for some classification. I don't think there is any difference in the intellectual power. It is just a government way of saying below some population or some parameter, your tier 2 city and tier 3 cities. There is no such thing in intellectual domain. That democratization has kindled a hope that everyone can do. It's not that you have to be a IIT student or anyone. It can be anyone who has the innovation streak will succeed. And many of these are not billion-dollar investment. Please see that. They are not like out of reach. Many of these things started in a very modest way and have a success story. So what I thought, in addition to JAM, which allowed all this, it allowed all the players to come on board in a very democratic manner with dignity. Nobody was looking down upon on anyone that, okay, I'll take you along, I'll do you a favor. No such thing. They were all playing their part. Also, they were competing. So it's a healthy competition. That's when the innovations occur. Only when you are challenged, you come out with a solution which your neighbor may not have. So I just thought we can keep this democratization of innovation also an example from the DPI.
Yeah, actually, if I might pick up on this, I think it's a very important point in the following way. And I think it's a big strength of the digital space, that in many ways the barriers to entry are lower, because you don't need a big physical infrastructure. I don't need to set up a big factory to produce goods and services. The second part is that, again, when you're talking about democratizing innovation, at the heart of good innovation is an understanding of the use context, right? And because the use context can vary greatly, geographically or among different groups in the community, and because the barriers to entry are lower, it does provide exactly what you're saying, a democratizing of innovation, because a lot of people with a much more nuanced understanding of the use context of different groups of users can actually come up with innovations, especially when the foundation has already been provided through public investments, right? So it really is the combination of the public investments and the nature of this space that allows for the democratizing of innovation that you talked about. And I think it's a very important
and I
point.
think the other point which was made, which again, that we are in the initial part of the S-shaped curve, which was mentioned. And that is also telling us that there are gaps in which we need to fill in. In one of my slides I showed, we should not feel complacent and say that 1 kilobyte per second is acceptable. No, it's not acceptable. I'm saying we have to keep on reminding ourselves that we have to go middle of the curve and not really remain here, which was mentioned. So I thought that is also understandable looking at our infrastructure resources available. And somehow I have a feeling success tells all the things which will happen. Now success has come, and this will fuel further investment even in the infrastructures. So there is a possibility, I'm not saying it will happen tomorrow, that the private sector will come in a major way in building infrastructure. It's not that only government has to build the infrastructure. They have shown the path. And I have a feeling they have seen the potential for it. So the infrastructure can also be built or contributed by private sector, provided it's welcome thing, but it should remain democratically available. So that should not be weaponized economically to not have the benefits the way it has happened till now. So I hope it will happen. Maybe you know more than anyone in private sector how people think. But I have a feeling it will also tell, okay, with my limited understanding, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I'll say it. See, the 25, 30 years back, we never had CRS, corporate CSR, corporate social responsibility. We never heard of this word actually, correct? Now CSR, of course it is mandated, but also it has entered in our psyche that it is good to make money, but it is also good to pay attention to the society because it also feeds to your brand value. That realization, though it started with a mandate from government, everyone will spend 2% on CSR. Now I see, because in our office when we see various foundations coming and telling what all they are doing and what wonderful outreach they have to society, it makes me very hopeful that the culture is changing from private sector, working for the social good, of course keeping their interest also alive. So I think that is one takeaway which I also see could be happening in future.
Professor Sood, having spent 27 years with the Tata Group, let me put it that CSR has been deep in the DNA of many firms.
Not all.
Not all, but many
Some.
corporates.
Tata is one of the.
Yes. But I think the point that you made that the private sector has a role for that infrastructure layout, I think we need to take a pragmatic view of that, and if it involves some amount of closed ecosystem being created, maybe that is worth it, a risk worth taking to drive it, because one of the leading telecom providers actually pushed the envelope on the price point, where the business case no doubt was based on that once they build the network out, the user base inside that will automatically preferentially go towards them on the commerce side and on the content side. And that ability to take that risk and the flexibility to take that risk, I think we should allow the private sector to do it, because otherwise
I
the level of investment that was actually unleashed there, close to multiple tens of billions of dollars were put out there, would not have happened. And if that price point had not been lowered,
correct,
many of the things that we actually experienced would not have happened.
Completely on this thing.
I think maybe I'll add a couple of first follow-up on this point. I think it's kind of interesting is this technology, like many technologies, is also, we are seeing what's called the network effect, right? Which is the more the number of users on the platform, so let's think about this digital payments platform, the more the number of users, the more everybody else needs to be on it, right? Once there was enough Paytm and such in use, vendors had to start using it because in some senses you don't want to be left out, right? It's the same with cell phones. If anybody says, I don't want a cell phone today, that's not a choice because everybody else has a cell phone, and therefore for you, there's a cost to not having a cell phone and a big benefit to having a cell phone. So the network effect actually, in a sense, builds the momentum, but then that also helps industry, the private sector, think about the possible coming value in it. So I think it provides a kind of a preview of the kind of market possibilities there. But I also want to add one thing. I think, yes, the private sector has to play a very important role. But what was very interesting, you mentioned that UNDP compendium of the SDGs. I actually went in thinking about today's conversation. I went and downloaded it. And if anybody's interested in thinking about the SDGs and the digital transformation, I would recommend you go to that website and download it. It's a spectacular collection of examples from across the world, often driven actually by nonprofits, in ways in which the digital transformation can advance the SDGs, right? Now, again, for somebody like me, who thinks about the SDGs from a public policy perspective, not necessarily a digital person, understanding the connection about how this digital transformation driven by DPI can actually advance all the SDGs really helps you understand the possibility, not just in terms of the financial transaction point of view, but many of the transactions involving knowledge, sharing of data, and all of that can help advance the SDGs, whether it is knowledge in marine data, whether it's agricultural services to farmers, whether it is, as you mentioned, in the health space, or whether it is providing actually information about climate action, carbon trading, so many different examples. It's actually mind-boggling to get a sense of the tsunami of transformation that's going to be coming in all the SDGs. And I think it was actually, certainly to me, it was eye-opening, because I think about SDGs all the time. And, I think it was mentioned that I just helped write what's called the Global Sustainable Development Report. The report is all about transformations. And we actually talked about digitalization as one of the key dimensions of transformation, but I think none of us on the committee actually really thought about the deep interlinkage between the digital transformation and the SDG transformations. And I think that's where private sector may play a very important role, but other non-profit entities, I think, will also play a very important role.
Absolutely.
And again, the DPI, the digital public infrastructure, which is the investments made by the government, can very much enable that.
If I can touch upon one more thing that Professor you spoke about towards the end, that is the Diksha system. And if you were to think forward in terms of where could the other big changes be? So a big part of what TCS and the Indian IT sector was able to do was to actually catalyze the training system at the higher education level to act as a supply chain to provide the kind of volume of talent that was required. Part of that is actually involved in interacting with the educational institutions, the engineering colleges, to ensure that their course content and we are kind of participating up the value chain or into the supply chain. By actually digitizing the primary education system, and if you look forward into the private sector taking a more pragmatic call on what kind of skill sets we need, how do we start interacting, and how do we start making content available, which and then incentivizing certain types of behavior into that system, we can actually transform the primary education system also. Though I talk about it from an industry perspective as a feeder into industry, whereas more purist educationists will maybe not quite like it, but there is a trade-off to be made in terms of how do we actually link up future jobs and what are the kind of skill sets that are required, which can probably start somewhere in the middle years program onwards.
Just to that, I'll add, we have, how much time? We have infinite time? 5 minutes. Because we have right. No, I'm saying in the new education policy, which was announced, let's say, few years back, now the actual contents have been now done for this, all the school levels. Now, that exercise is all, I mean, I'm not part of that, but I know people who are part of that. And it, for the, I think, was kindergarten to third maybe rolled out this session. And then up to 12th will come soon. And that content formation, which is not the old content, old content, will be amenable to this digital transformation, which will really cut across various sectors. I'm saying the content is important, what you want to teach to the future generation. And good news is that this NEP happening almost simultaneously at the same time will be catalyzes it.
Fantastic.
So I think I'll probably, somebody has the question. Do we go for the questions now? Last 5 minutes? Yeah. So that.
Yeah, I'm an ex-civil servant. I have a fundamental question to ask you. You made a great presentation on data. But if you look at the total number of transactions through UPI, which you mentioned 10 billion in September, totaling 15.7 lakh crores, the paradox that I want to ask you, the conundrum that's in my mind, which I think you're the best person to answer, is that why is it that the cash in circulation is increasing day by day, while the cashless payments are running into billions of transactions, 15.75 lakh crores. 3 small additive points I'll make here. Pre-demonetization, the CIC, cash in circulation, was 17 lakh crores. Demonetization's purpose was to reduce cash. And today we have 35 lakh crores of cash in circulation. If you are doing 15.75 lakh crores worth of 10 billion transactions in 1 month, the cash by definition should reduce. The second additive point, if you take the piped water supply as digital payments, and every house gets a piped water supply, the number of buckets required in each house will reduce, logically. And I mean the buckets as cash. So if you have piped water supply, digital payments, buckets reduce, cash reduces.
Okay.
Now, my last point, let me just
I'm
give
looking at the organizers.
No,
they are staring at you.
No, the point I'm making is, if you look at
No,
Sweden...
I'm saying it's a very simple answer.
No, just give me once more. Sweden has reduced cash by 80% because of complete cashless payments everywhere. In India, this paradox continues. Mr. Tankha, Economic Times, 15 days back, wrote about this. I want you to explain in simple language why this is
No, I will not
this
give a
GDP
solution.
Argument,
No,
I don't agree.
no, let me see. I think I'll take the risk of making a guess, because evening you can take risks, right? The point is, we are talking of white economy, right? Now, the data speaks for itself. This is not a first data. When you say if the digital has increased, cash should reduce, it assumes a fundamental law of physics, which is conservation. There is no conservation here. Both can increase, or both can increase at the cost of each other. There is no paradigm here that the cash will come down and only digital will increase. What government needs to do and what public needs to do is to plug the leakage in the system. And this obviously is not, which I understand. I'm sure you have understanding of leakage. So I'm saying it's a complex question, but do not tie up the cash transactions, which have to be reduced, to the growth of this digital transaction. There is no need to do that. What we have to see is digital transactions have increased. How do you plug in what is happening on the cash transaction and see they brought on board? That is a good news. Because that's when the discussion will happen.
Give me a minute. As I explained to you, in Sweden,
Thank you. Because there is no simple answer. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this was wonderful because I rarely get to hear such eminent people, and that too on science subjects. But two quick questions. So basically, there's so much data being gathered, Aadhaar and payment systems. For example, my Paytm, they have access to all my bank data. Where is it stored? Is it stored in India? Is it secured? Can you please shed some light on that? And second question is, can we look forward, to a compute infrastructure also, parallel to this technology infrastructure, our own microprocessors, our own.
So
operating
I
systems
don't
and
know where
servers?
you know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I know what the rule says. The way the law has been stated is that a copy has to be maintained here.
Here.
That does not prevent a copy being maintained outside dynamically. And it also requires the provider to ensure that any data stored outside will be removed on the request of the regulator here. That's a broad way of putting it. But of course, there are nuances to it, depending on what and who you are. But a bank needs to maintain the data set here, while it might simultaneously also maintain a data set of that outside, or even could transact with that data outside. But the transaction capability should also exist locally. So Aadhaar is stored in India, but again it has the same thing. Because it is cloud-based solution, it does not prevent that data to be dynamically stored outside, as long as it is also ensured that it is stored locally, and the local copy is the primary source, primary gold copy, as it were. Yeah. Then Ajay, you have a further insight on it, or?
I just wanted to, Mr. Shyam Saran sitting here, I found that the panel missed out on one area, which is how could DPI used in foreign policy, especially in places like Africa, to push, firstly be very helpful.
I actually said that in G20 it is already taken place. Lot of discussions have happened in my slide I showed.
Okay.
Actually, there is a serious discussion on it, and the Sherpa, G20 Sherpa is actually spearheading this as we speak.
So good, I like to have the last word.
Yes.
The one is a question. The recent hacking of the MGM architecture in US by a foreign hackers, unknown hackers, but the Russians and the Chinese are very good at it. So we would have to have better security from these hackers. Either learn it from the Russians, how to write better algorithms, and that is my first question, how are we going to do that? And for that, I would say that investment in education must grow from 3.5. The state cannot afford to be so stingy of spending only 3.1% on education. I think it must go to 10%, and the private sector should also come in, like in the United States. You cannot everywhere say that I want to make profit. Somewhere you must give back to the country that has helped you to make so much business. And I think the private sector is sir, I don't think the CSR is good. I don't say it's bad, but it's not enough. And as an educationist of India's primary university, still public universities are the best. I would vouch for it. Private universities have
What is the question now?
My question is, sir, how do we safeguard this, get better?
Okay, I answered that actually partially. The cyber security is something on everyone's agenda. Please trust me. Even one agency called CDOT, which is one of the many agencies, actually itself is doing a lot, because I visited them 3 days back. Many things are happening. Many other players are there, which we don't have to this thing. Lot of strategic sectors are having the concern. This is not something which is not under attention. And I was told that 70 lakh attacks happen in a single day on India's infrastructure. 70 lakhs. Only very few succeed. Very few. AIMS is one of the example which everyone gives. But you know that AIMS was saved because there was a appropriate care which saved. So cyber security is a concern, not only because of digitalization in India, but everyone. And there are a whole lot of infrastructure and mechanisms which have been put in place. May not be enough, but it is very much on the center stage. And because of that, you have not heard Aadhaar hacking so far. Isn't it surprising to you? Because the hackers are not sleeping, trust me. But still they have not been able to do. It does not mean that they are not trying. So what I understand from all these agencies, which is not any secret, lots and lots of attacks are happening exactly on DPI related infrastructure. Lots and lots. It's not one or two. But there are systems in place, and this thing, people were afraid COVID data will be leaked, right? We all heard about it. But so far there is no authenticate case. Is there an authenticate case of hacking? COVID? I have not come across. So I am saying the fears are well taken, but it should not paralyze us. That's the point. I thought we will leave on a happy note without worrying that your data is being leaked. Wonderful.
Thank you, Professor. Very
Thanks so much. Yeah.
Pleasure as always.
Light on the unprecedented opportunities that this endeavor brings to us. Now, lastly, to express our gratitude for the insightful discussions made today, I invite Air Commodore Kamalvalli, Secretary ISC, to propose a vote of thanks.
Keynote speaker, Professor Ajay Sood, Honorable Shri Shyam Saranji, President IISc, Professor Ambud Sagar, Shri Rajesh Gopinathan, thank you very much for a wonderful evening. On behalf of the India International Center, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude, especially to Professor Ajay Kumar Sood for his illuminating insights on the India's digital public infrastructure initiative. I would also like to express our deep gratitude to our eminent panelists, Professor Ambud Sagar and Shri Rajesh Gopinathan, for their perspectives and forward-thinking spirit. I would also like to congratulate all the people over here and also express my heartfelt thanks to our Honorable Shri Shyam Saranji. This evening was only possible because of his initiative. He was instrumental in getting all of us over here today. Thank you very much, sir, for getting us all over here and on this beautiful talk which was given today. And special thanks to our esteemed members and the audience who have been patient with us over here in participation and thought-provoking questions which were exchanged. Special thanks also to the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor and the program team of the IISc who worked seamlessly to make today's talk successful. I would not like to take much, but thank you very much once again. And we look forward to many future collaborative engagements of such ideas and discussions. Thank you very much and good night.